I discovered that Willow was cheating with her boss. She didn't panic, didn't deny it. We calmly communicated and negotiated the divorce. Everything was peaceful. However, on the way to get the divorce certificate, I couldn't help but ask her, "Why are you so insistent on taking our marital home?" I had thought that, although she had betrayed me, at the very least she still felt guilty toward me. Still held some lingering affection for our 10 years together. And that was why she insisted on keeping the marital home. But unexpectedly, the next moment, Willow smiled faintly and said, "Makoto loves me so much, he just has to personally erase every trace of me being with another man to feel satisfied." Her brows curved, her sweet tone tinged with a hint of reproach. She whispered softly, "So childish." I froze for a few seconds, looking at her side profile, glowing with happiness because she was about to divorce me. The next second, I raised my hand and slapped her so hard that blood burst from her nose. Chapter 1. I suffer from emotional detachment. When Willow brought up divorce, I handled it with my usual rational calmness. She had cheated, but she didn't make a scene. She simply agreed to my proposal for splitting the marital assets. The only thing she insisted on was keeping our marital home. I bought that apartment when I was 24. Spending every last bit of my savings. I still remember the day we received the keys. In that raw, concrete-smelling apartment, we dreamed and planned our future, eyes shining with excitement. That joy is something I could never forget. Even years later, 8 years passed, my salary grew higher each year. And the houses I bought became bigger and more beautiful, one after another. By the time of the divorce, I already had 7 properties under my name. We hadn't lived in that old place for years. The marital home that once carried our brightest hopes now seemed poorly located, badly lit, cheaply decorated. Compared to my other properties, it was insignificant. If it had any worth, it was only that it held the memories of the years when Willow and I loved each other the most. So when she insisted on keeping it, I naively believed that, though she had betrayed me, she must at least feel guilty, must at least have some lingering attachment to our 10 years together. But in truth, it was only to provide entertainment for that man. There was no attachment, no guilt, even as a betrayer. If she still saw me as a person, if she had even a shred of respect left for me, she wouldn't have spoken so casually. I took a deep breath, staring at Willow's side profile. She looked radiant with happiness, happy because she could be with him, joyful because she could divorce me. A few seconds later, I checked my seatbelt, checked the road, pulled over, and flexed my wrist. Expressionless, I called out, "Willow." She returned from her sweet daydream of a future with him, and asked, What is it?" The next second, I swung my arm wide, and with a sharp crack, I slapped Willow so hard that her nose burst into a spray of blood. Chapter 2. Willow screamed, "George, are you crazy?" That sudden, unexpected blow left her stunned. She couldn't keep up her usual image of grace and poise, instead breaking into a hysterical scream. I watched her reaction, making sure the car was safely parked. After all, someone heading for a new life still values their own safety. Willow glared at me angrily, while dabbing at her bleeding nose with tissues. She pressed her lips tightly together and said bitterly, "George, you actually dared to hit me. And to think I once believed you were a gentle and considerate man. Now I see the truth, you're an abusive man. You actually laid hands on a woman. So everything you ever did for me was just an act. People always say you see someone's true character when you break up. And it's true, I must have been blind to marry you." I replied coldly. "So your logic is that a so-called good man should just stand there while a gun is pointed at his head? Sorry, but I have no interest in being your so-called good man. And you think you're qualified to talk about character, so you cheating is perfectly justified. But the moment I fight back I'm suddenly the villain." She bit her lip and said, "Can't we just separate peacefully? End things with dignity?" I sneered. "Dignity? Divorce was part of your long-laid plan. You can't wait to run off to your lover. You're happy and everything goes your way. Of course you feel dignified. That dignity comes from your heart." In that moment, I suddenly saw through my own self-deception and forced calm. I gritted my teeth and said, "And me, I've been betrayed, deceived, and forced to accept this situation. Why should I be dignified? You call that dignity? No, that's cowardice." Willow's expression was as if she found me utterly unreasonable. She asked, "What do you really want?" What I wanted was for the two of them, those filthy lovers, to never have a good ending. I stared at her and said word by word, to vent my anger. While she was still in shock, I swung another slap across her face. With a loud crack, her cheek bloomed with a bright red handprint. Before my next slap could land, Willow covered her face and shouted, "George, don't go too far." I replied, "Too far? Was your cheating not too far? Was spending my money to book hotel rooms with him not too far? Was it not too far when that bastard sent me intimate photos of you two while I was lying in the hospital?" Expressionless, I said, No, I can't let this anger go. I will never divorce you. It was as if Willow was seeing me for the first time. She glared and said hatefully, "Fine, George. I always knew you were selfish, cold-blooded, petty, and stingy, unable to take a single loss, but I still underestimated you." Her refusal to divorce created more complications. She was already sick of being pointed at and judged by others, and she didn't want Makoto waiting too long. Closing her eyes briefly, Willow stopped arguing, biting her lip, choking back her voice. She said, "Fine, you hit me, then hit me. Let's just say I owe you that. Okay, now it's paid. If one day you look back on how you treated me today, and you feel like you hurt me and owe me, don't feel guilty. Don't try to make it up to me. I don't need it, because what I want, you could never give." I said nothing. With a mocking smile that didn't reach my eyes, I flexed my wrist again. The next second, with a sharp crack, another slap landed. I said, "Here's another slap to see if you'll keep acting crazy." I asked, "Did I give you the bill? So why are you paying for it? And besides, how much is a slap worth when you've already thrown away your dignity? You said I'd feel guilty about hurting you. Rest assured, when I remember today, I'll only feel satisfaction." I added, "This bill written all over your face today. I'll make sure your filthy lover sees it. Let him feel heartache for you." With that, I landed yet another heavy slap. Chapter 3. By the time we arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, my mood had finally lightened a bit, only to be ruined again by an angry shout. Makoto, Willow's lover, was standing at the entrance, frowning, looking at Willow with worry. Today he wore shiny, polished leather shoes, a tailor-made suit, a Rolex on his wrist, even his hair slicked back neatly, meticulous, pompous, showing off. I didn't know if he dressed up like this to mock me as the loser, or to whisk Willow off to celebrate their bright new life together right after the divorce. But whatever reason he had for being so eager to claim this cheap prize, whether it was true love for Willow or just the hope of her taking half my assets, either way, it was about to fall apart. Makoto pulled Willow into his arms, gently stroking her face with concern, and asked, "Baby Willow, this bastard hit you, didn't he?" He fumed. "How dare he hit you? How could he hit a woman? Why didn't you call the police?" Willow's tone carried both grievance and a hint of coyness. She said, "My dear Makoto, don't argue with him. This little injury is nothing. Don't lose your temper and fight him because of me. It's not worth it." Makoto held her indulgently and said, "As the old saying goes, a virtuous wife brings less trouble for her husband." How true that is. Don't worry, I won't stoop to his level. Willow pouted pitifully and buried her face in Makoto's chest. The two of them clung to each other, full of false tenderness, pretending to be so moved, it made me sick to watch. I asked, "Are we divorcing or not? If not, I'm leaving." "Divorcing." Willow quickly pushed Makoto aside and rushed into the bureau, lest the slap she endured go to waste. But Makoto still wanted to show off a little. He stretched out his arm to block me, his eyes dodging, stammering. "No wonder Willow doesn't want you. What else can a guy like you do besides hit women? Apologize to Willow right now." He was half a head shorter than me, pointing at my nose and scolding me like that, with a cowardly yet playful foolishness. No wonder Willow liked him. Being with him probably made her feel like her mentality, and even her IQ, had returned to her youth. I tucked away the divorce papers, looked at him, and smiled. "In that case, we don't have to get divorced right away. Think about it, we'll have to separate sooner or later anyway. Since she's your future wife, isn't it a bargain for me to keep using her for one more day? And while you two keep sneaking around like this, if one day I feel like settling accounts, it'll be easy enough to ruin you completely." Makoto instantly deflated, head drooping, spirit crushed. He stood aside helplessly and watched us complete the divorce procedures. Chapter 4. After the paperwork was done, Makoto escorted Willow into the car and left. I walked to the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, took a deep breath, and let the cold December air fill my lungs. Only then did the pain in my chest start to emerge. I recalled what Willow had just said in the car, calling me selfish and cold-blooded. That wasn't the first time she had described me that way. Back then, it was Willow who pursued me, yet I never responded to her advances. Even then she complained. "George, to put it nicely, you're a straight man who doesn't understand romance. To put it bluntly, you're selfish and cold-blooded, unwilling to let anyone into your heart." And yet, it was I, the so-called selfish and cold-blooded one, who, once we were together, supported her dreams without asking for anything in return. After graduation, we both wanted to pursue graduate studies, but financially it wasn't possible. Just then, I received an excellent job offer. I gritted my teeth and told Willow to go ahead and study while I worked to support her. Rent in the big city was high. With only my salary to live on, I could only afford a tiny room without a private bathroom. We were truly poor back then. We couldn't afford restaurants, so I bought a small electric stove, set it by the window, and cooked simple meals. On the rare occasions when I received a bonus, I would take her out for lamb at the little shop at the end of the street. It was winter. Just like now, nothing was warmer than eating lamb. She would always pick the meaty bones and place them in my bowl. There was a time I worked through nights, exhausted myself, and ended up in the hospital. Willow's eyes turned red. She said, "George, it's because of me that you're working so hard." She said, "Wait for me. Once I graduate, I'll marry you." But later, what she said most often was how many years of hardship she had endured by my side. How should I put it? Wishes are always beautiful, but reality turns ruthless. Just last month, I collapsed from acute appendicitis and was rushed to the hospital by a passerby. I called Willow countless times, but no one answered. Then a message arrived from a stranger's account, with a video. In the photo, a man lay half naked on a bed, grinning smugly as he took a selfie with his phone. "Baby Willow, give me a smile. What's there to be shy about?" Beside him, my wife Willow sat against the headboard, covering her face with her hands, turning her head away shyly. The next day, Willow came to the hospital. Under my calm gaze, she said with dissatisfaction, "George, love is about fulfillment, about letting go. We've been together for 10 years, you can't stop me from going to someone better, can you?" Chapter 5. Back home. I felt some regret for my impulsiveness. Violence is not a good method. Life is long, and I could have handled this matter with more dignity, or found more clever ways to take revenge on them. While I was reflecting on this, I saw Makoto's WeChat post, probably meant to comfort Willow after her fright and grievance. Makoto had taken her out for a lavish meal, for wild shopping, buying so much that both her hands were nearly too full to carry. Willow looked well pleased, soothed into happiness, wearing a dress and high heels, nestled in Makoto's arms at a fancy restaurant, flashing a peace sign with a blissful smile. Makoto's caption read, "At this point, a certain loser can only stew in his powerless rage." The second caption said, "Principle of retreat for the happy man. Backing down doesn't mean I'm scared. It's just that the other guy is 9 times out of 10 a failure, so there's no need to bother with him." Among his series of photos, one showed Willow's ankle, loosely wrapped with a thin chain. I recognized it. It was the necklace I had left in the marital home, the simple silver necklace I had given her in our first year together, which she had treasured and worn for many years. It had been written into the divorce agreement, together with the marital home, soon to belong to Willow. Whether she wore it as an anklet or put it on a dog, I had no power to stop her. Such a clumsy tactic. Makoto had posted it deliberately for me to see, just to mock me, to provoke me, to claw back some sense of victory. I closed WeChat moments, and I faced my feelings with complete honesty. Yes, I was indeed provoked. Yes, violence is not a good method. Yes, life is long, and I could handle this with more dignity, or find more clever ways to take revenge. But right now, I only wanted to wipe the smile off their faces. Chapter 6. First, I called my lawyer to amend the divorce agreement. I had changed my mind. I wanted Willow to leave with nothing. The lawyer paused for a moment and said, "That demand might not be easy to achieve." I replied, "That's fine." My gaze lingered on the phone screen, on Makoto's smug, arrogant smile. I said, "After all, the one who can't afford to drag this out isn't me." I hung up. After 30 minutes of technical training, I drove straight to the mall where Willow was shopping and found the two of them arm in arm at the entrance. One slap. The force traveled from my waist and back into my palm, the angle and power executed to perfection. Willow was instantly knocked to the ground, clutching her face, stunned and unable to recover for a long while. Makoto started shouting again, "George, what the hell are you doing now?" I raised an eyebrow and said, "What?" Planning to step in. I glanced at the crowd of onlookers quickly gathering around. Makoto let out a cold laugh and said, "Who do you take me for?" I nodded and said, "Good." Then I landed another solid slap. The spectators started chattering loudly. "What's going on here? Isn't it obvious? He caught his wife cheating and is beating her lover." But another said, "No, wait, it looks like he's only hitting the woman. Of course, I may wound the enemy by 1,000, but I don't intend to harm myself by 800. If you injure the mistress, that's intentional assault, you'll end up detained. But when it's between husband and wife, everyone knows how it goes, at most it's smoothed over. After all, even when a woman stabs her boyfriend with a kitchen knife bought in advance, all it takes is some friendly counseling from a big sister figure, and that's that." Makoto, embarrassed at losing face, shouted loudly, "Willow's baby is already divorcing you. We paid you money. What more do you want?" I asked. "We." I rolled that word around carefully. I said, "Willow and I haven't gotten the divorce certificate yet. You and she haven't gotten a marriage certificate yet. So who exactly is this a we?" By then, people had started recording videos. Someone said, "Damn, this adulterer is so arrogant. Calling her a baby like that, and she looks over 30 already. What a scandal." Willow's intelligence hadn't completely regressed. She must have realized how humiliating it was. She desperately tried to drag Makoto away, but Makoto, worked up, shoved Willow aside, spilling all their shopping bags across the ground. The two of them scrambled to pick up their things. I took the chance to rain down slaps left and right, sometimes at Willow, sometimes at Makoto when he couldn't hold back from stepping in for her. Indiscriminate blows. In the chaos, Willow's shoe came off. The necklace she had been wearing as an anklet slipped loose, tripping her so she fell hard on her backside. The necklace flew away, swallowed into the crowd of onlookers, and disappeared. Chapter 7. Despite Willow's attempts to stop him, Makoto still called the police. We were taken to the police station. My lawyer arrived immediately to sit behind me as support. "I'm sorry, officer." I bowed sincerely, cooperating with humility. I said, "I suddenly discovered my wife's cheating, her betrayal, her abandonment. I was so heartbroken and devastated that I lost control of my reason, acted impulsively, and couldn't help but hit her. I've caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." The officer taking notes paused, his gaze at me a little uncertain. He asked, "Was today the first time you hit her?" I answered, "Yes, the first time." The officer frowned. My lawyer spoke up just in time. "The standard for defining domestic violence is sustained and repeated behavior. What my client did cannot be classified as domestic violence. This was simply an overreaction after an extreme emotional shock." The officer put down his pen and made a judgment. He said, "This is a divorce dispute. Go home and resolve it between yourselves." Makoto suddenly shot to his feet, his voice rising. "What? She's been beaten like this, and he doesn't even get detained?" The officer glanced at Willow's face and said, "It looks alarming, but even medically it doesn't qualify as minor injury. That doesn't meet the standard for detention." Makoto, furious and flustered, suddenly pointed to his own bruised eye socket and shouted, "What about me then? He hit me too. I'm not his family member. Doesn't this count as intentional assault?" My lawyer cast me a meaningful look. I once again stood up, humbly apologizing. I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ito. You happened to be in the way of my attack. I couldn't stop myself in time. It was purely accidental injury." The officer nodded as well and said, "Sir, the surveillance footage cannot prove that Mr. Wong had the intent to harm you. This cannot be considered intentional assault, only a matter for civil mediation." In the end, following standard procedure, the police ordered me to compensate Makoto with 50 yuan for lost work and 200 yuan for emotional damages, a total of 250 yuan. I accepted it sincerely, called out to Willow, and pointed at Makoto. "You hear that? Transfer him the 250. Since the property division hadn't been settled yet, whether she paid or I paid, it was the same. Makoto's face turned dark. As we left the station, I walked past Makoto. Seeing the wariness in his eyes, I smiled lightly and said, "Why bother provoking me? There's still a month of the divorce cooling off period. I can change my mind at any time. Go on. Show off in front of me again if you dare." Leaving the police station, I felt a surge of relief. Suddenly everything became clear. What restraint, what composure, what dignity. All lies, I told myself. Every suppressed emotion would eventually crawl back in the middle of the night, consuming me with a frenzy of self-torment. I'd replay today's humiliation again and again, suffering endlessly. No, people should take revenge when it's due, revenge immediately. Once the anger is released, the heart naturally feels lighter. I won't be like those men who, after being cheated on, endure in silence, pretending nothing happened. Why torture myself? Of course, I'll choose to torture them instead. Chapter 8. When I learned that the video of me beating up the toxic woman at the mall entrance had gone viral online, I was training at the boxing gym. Although I had kept a long-time fitness routine, it was only to maintain my energy, never with the thought of fighting one day, but recalling the moment I pounded them. I kept feeling that I hadn't done it well enough, not satisfying enough, so I signed up for boxing lessons. During a break, my female sparring partner glanced at her phone, then at me, and said, "Hey, this is you, isn't it?" Curious, I took the phone and realized the video had exploded in popularity. Somehow, all three of our personal information had been dug up and posted. In the comments below, netizens wrote, "Good, good. Finally someone not only beating the cheating lover. I can't stand those sayings like, no matter what, you can't hit a woman. At the end of the day, that's just simp thinking." There were also bullet comments. "Damn satisfying. Look at that muscle definition. When he throws punches, you can feel the power." And another, "See how cowardly that adulterer was, even shoving the woman forward. Is this toxic woman blind?" Of course, some people sided with Willow and Makoto. One comment read, "You can't judge without knowing the whole story." I'll just say this, I'll never take part in attacking a woman who knows what she went through that made her cheat. Another comment, "Am I the only one who thinks she should just get divorced?" A bullet comment echoed, "Yeah, This guy is way too violent. A woman is meant to be cherished, not harmed. By treating her this way, he's just pushing his wife away. Another said, I'm a man. And I think so too. Sometimes you really have to look for the reasons in yourself. Another bullet comment said, men need to have vision. Learn to let go. Making such a scene, doesn't it look pathetic? Being petty and narrow-minded will never lead to greatness. Perhaps encouraged by those voices of sympathy, Makoto created an account and posted many close-ups of his injuries, bruises on his face and arms streaked with blood. His caption read, although loving you is full of hardship, I won't back down. I sneered and sent back a photo of the boxing gym. I replied, you are not facing hardship, you are facing misfortune. Then, on my own account, I uploaded all the evidence of Makoto provoking me. For example, the selfie he took at the hotel. Caption, someone insisted on paying for the room, said it was pocket money from her husband, just so he could feel involved. For example, the message he sent me the night I was in surgery for appendicitis. Hey bro, you okay? Baby Willow said she's scared of the thunder and wanted me to stay with her. For example, the photo of the two of them wearing diamond rings, smiling brightly, with the caption, life, as easy as flipping a hand. All his flaunting, arrogance, and provocations, including Willow wearing the necklace I gave her as an anklet, everything I posted. The gossip-hungry netizens followed the trail. At the very least, I owed it to them to put on a good show. Chapter 9. By the time I finished training, showered comfortably, changed clothes, and picked up my phone, the tide of public opinion had completely shifted. Makoto's image as a devoted protector of his wife was utterly destroyed. Netizens flooded the comments. Damn, too cheap, too shameless. I'm furious, don't be mad. Go watch the video of George beating up the toxic woman and the adulterous lover, it's refreshing. I've been rewatching it, truly invigorating. Now this is a guilty pleasure drama, every punch landing with force. If I were that adulterous lover, I'd keep my head down. Is he stupid, always provoking George? Someone replied, it's just resentment. Some people love to debase themselves, stealing someone else's wife, and then flaunting the spoils of victory. Of course, some still stayed rational, neutral, objective. One comment read, am I the only one who thinks this guy looks pathetic doing all this? The clinging, the obsession, it's obvious he can't let go. Another said, the hostility online is too much these days. Be broad-minded. Take a step back, and the sky opens wide. Letting others go is letting yourself go. Another commented, why not just find someone younger and prettier than the ex-wife? Wouldn't that be the sweetest slap in her face? Another agreed. Yeah, only when the ex sees him with another woman will she truly feel the loss, and maybe start regretting. My female sparring partner, Anna, was following the gossip in real time, laughing with delight. When she saw that comment, she leaned closer, tucked her hair behind her ear, and smiled brightly. She asked, hey, what do you think of me? Want me to help piss off that toxic woman? I'm younger, prettier, stand next to you and I guarantee she'll. I replied, say one more word and I'm canceling my membership. She pouted. Oh. Chapter 10. I took annual leave from work and simply moved into a hotel. Better than being at home. Surrounded everywhere by reminders that made me upset. Fitness, swimming, snacking in the executive lounge, gazing at the night view from the top floor suite, then sleeping until I woke naturally. Right now, I was terrifyingly strong. As the saying goes, with no woman in my heart, my sword strikes with divine clarity. On the other hand, there were still many rational, neutral, and objective voices online, criticizing me for lacking dignity. I scrolled past a video commentary from a million-follower relationship blogger. The harshest revenge a man can take is not nitpicking, but silently walking away, starting over, achieving a reversal of fortune, and finally watching the toxic woman regret with a cold, indifferent heart. This Mr. Wong may look like he's winning, but in truth he's still punishing himself with his ex-wife's mistakes. True dignity after a breakup is to leave with grace. Now, even that image of dignity is gone. Women will only think they were lucky to have left you. I sneered. Washing underwear with a cold face, what a sophisticated way to dress it up. Why should I care about what final impression I leave on a toxic woman? Why endure humiliation when I can take revenge on the spot? Why give up all my assets, leave with nothing, just to let Willow have a lofty silhouette of me walking away, so she can, in the dead of night, feel a pang of regret? No, but then again, with so many big bloggers reposting, was it really getting this much traction? I swiftly updated my account bio. Might as well take the opportunity to build a platform of my own. Chapter 11. By evening, my college roommate called me, his tone cautious. George, about tomorrow's class reunion, are you still coming? The moment I heard it, I understood. The video of me beating up the toxic woman and her adulterous lover at the mall had gone viral. Many acquaintances must have seen it. I replied, of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I? On the other end, he said. But I heard Willow will be there with that guy. Won't it be a little? I laughed and asked. Embarrassing, I said. She had the audacity to flaunt her cheating. I, who am clean and innocent, why should I feel embarrassed? My roommate let out a sigh of relief. Glad you think that way. I was worried you might take it too hard. After all, Willow was your first love. He remembered the past and spoke with some emotion. You could have gone on to grad school, but instead you got together with Willow. Once you did, you were unbelievably devoted, 10+ years from campus to marriage. It's normal to find it hard to let go. A sharp pang pierced my heart. I cut him off. Let's not talk about sunk cost. See you the day after tomorrow. On the day of the reunion, I pushed the door open. The once lively crowd fell silent. Everyone's eyes on me carried a strange look. I looked over. Makoto had his arm around Willow's shoulders, holding the leash of an Alaskan dog, feeding it butter cookies. I recognized those cookies. I had made them. I'd learned the recipe while doing food deliveries. I never cared much for them myself, but I made them to give Willow a taste of something different. She used to take them to school with milk tea, saying they were healthier than store-bought snacks. When Makoto saw me, he deliberately shoved another cookie into the dog's mouth, his gaze openly taunting. He sneered. What is this garbage, only fit for a dog to eat? I nodded and said, good. Better the dog eats them than you. Then I added, by the way, a reminder, your lady's been eating them for years. It took a moment for Makoto to process, his expression shifting from confusion to anger. Sensing trouble, the classmates quickly tried to smooth things over. Some changed the subject, others pulled me to a seat. I didn't want to dampen everyone's mood, so I chatted and laughed as I sat down. After several rounds of drinks, spirits were high. Everyone began reminiscing about college days. Someone brought out graduation photos, another old cafeteria cards. Just when the atmosphere was perfect, Makoto suddenly interrupted. Speaking of old stuff, I found quite a few things while sorting through the house yesterday. He pulled out photos of me and Willow, the protective charms we prayed for at a mountain temple, the handwritten letters I sent Willow while on business trips, countless keepsakes we had stored in the marital home. He held them up one by one, loudly mocking as he examined them. Look at this photo, so badly taken. How could Willow, my beautiful baby, be made to look ugly? Knowing how to take pictures is a must for a competent boyfriend, I replied. A camera can't work magic. A person looks how they look. Learning to accept yourself is what really matters. Makoto was at a loss for words, then continued. And this, worthless junk. Only a pauper would buy such a thing as a gift. He used his chopsticks to flick disdainfully at the plain silver ring Willow and I had bought for our first Valentine's Day. He said, keeping a cheap silver ring like this, clearly someone's never seen anything better. Our classmates exchanged uneasy glances, stealing looks at me to gauge my reaction. I stood up, walked over, and poured a glass of ice water straight over Willow's head. I asked, are you asleep? The dog you brought is barking nonstop and you don't even care to control it. Then I turned to Makoto and said, hard work for you, isn't it? Not only did you pick up a big piece of trash, but you even had the time to gather up all these little bits of garbage and bring them along. Willow quickly wiped the water from her face and pulled me aside, speaking angrily. Isn't it all because of the things you posted online? Makoto's been cursed at for 2 days. He didn't really do anything to you. Didn't even mention your name, so what if he let off some steam? Did you really have to go this far? I replied. He deserved it. Then I flung the empty glass straight at Willow's nose with precision. I said, and you deserve it too. Her nose, still not healed from the last time I slapped her, burst into blood again. Makoto wailed once more, while several classmates hurried forward to separate me from Willow. George. Willow, unable to bear it any longer, screamed. With so many classmates here, aren't you ashamed? Do you think anyone will side with you? They'll only see you as a clown, laughing at you. I sneered. I asked, what am I supposed to be afraid of? I said, you're the one who cheated. He's the adulterous lover. No matter how you look at it, shame doesn't fall on me. I swept my gaze slowly across all the classmates around us. I said, if any of you think the shame lies with me, then you ought to reflect on what kind of person you are yourselves. A few classmates who had just been watching with mocking interest looked stunned, awkwardly lowering their heads. Willow took a deep breath, pressed her lips together, and said, George, let's talk. Chapter 12. In the empty private room next door, Willow said irritably, George, I don't understand. You've always been emotionally detached. Even when your parents passed away, you endured it. Losing me shouldn't matter much. Just because my cheating hurt your pride, do you really have to torture me like this? You never even liked me that much. Expressionless, I asked. Oh, and what makes you think that? Willow, agitated, listed things off one by one. Since we got married, you've never given up a single promotion opportunity. For that, you wouldn't even consider having children. You already earn more than enough. So why do you have to work so hard, so obsessively? Do you know? I never cared about the money. What I wanted was your presence, your emotional support value. Why don't you understand me? Even during your rare vacations, you went to the gym, went fishing. Instead of coming home early to be with me, you said you were busy. So I found another man to keep me company. What's wrong with that? Makoto isn't like you. He always puts me first, spoils me like a sister. I'm begging you, please stop targeting him. Okay. I couldn't stand Willow's degrading face any longer. I grabbed whatever was at hand and hurled it at her. I shouted, "Are you fucking blind? Don't you know who provoked whom first? Who the hell are you trying to fool? You don't have to do the housework. You don't have to earn money. When I have money, you say it's not what you want. When I don't, you despise me for being useless. Cheating is cheating. Stop making excuses and pinning the blame for your affair on me. Aren't you shameless?" As I spoke, I kept throwing things. Willow scrambled to dodge in panic. I roared, "Why don't you provide me with emotional support value? Why don't you go earn money? Why don't you go fishing and work out with me?" Chapter 13. That's right. I've never fallen for the tricks of PUA, because I never wanted to become a man like my father. When I was very young, my mom cheated. My dad always sank into memories of their past, brooding and grieving in silence. He couldn't understand why my mom ran off with another man. He refused to believe it. So when she came back claiming she had been deceived, he chose to forgive her. By now, my mom had already cheated 4 times, with 4 different men, and my dad forgave her 4 times. When he went to confront the latest lover, eyes bloodshot with rage, the man knocked him flat on the ground with contempt. My mom only looked at him with disgust, while bystanders pitied him and sneered at the same time. That was when I swore to myself in my heart, in this life, I will never let myself be that pathetic. I will never wholeheartedly trust anyone. I will never cling to any relationship. So I never had inseparable brothers, never had a girl who made my heart race, never had parents I could lean on. But as time dragged on, my steady emotions became like a pool of stagnant water. My life was so detached, so untethered, it felt like I could disappear from this world at any moment. The truth is, Willow wasn't all that special. She just happened to show up at the right time. When I began to question the meaning of my existence, she came, bold and radiant, and told me, "George, love is a beautiful thing. If you never try, how will you ever know what it feels like?" So I tried to like someone, but deep down, my instinct for self-protection was too strong. It meant I could never love without reservation. I could never tie my fate together with Willow's. After Willow graduated, when my finances got a little better, I freed myself from trivial matters and threw myself into building my career. What's wrong with that? I laughed and said, if I weren't a corporate executive, would I even have such a long paid vacation to divorce you? I said, if I couldn't afford the best lawyer, would you have split the assets so smoothly? I said, if we had 2 kids, we'd be fighting for custody now. And if I lost, I'd still have to pay you child support regularly. Besides, if we had kids, every time I hit you, would I have to settle the children first? Willow was speechless. At some point the door opened, and a bunch of people were recording with their phones. I knew this clip would go viral soon. Our old classmates were stunned, frozen for a long while before pulling us apart. Willow and Makoto were dragged off somewhere, while my college roommates stayed behind with me. The reunion had turned into a gossip spectacle. One roommate sighed and said, "George, you really never stop surprising us. You know, back then we all said you had a heart sealed in concrete, like you were destined to stay single forever. But then you suddenly got together with Willow, actually loved her seriously, married her, and stayed together for so many years. When we saw that video of you beating up Willow not long ago, we were shocked too. It was kind of satisfying to watch, but honestly, we couldn't imagine you being the one to do it. It felt a bit. The roommate trailed off awkwardly. I chuckled and helped him finish the thought. I said, a bit like a scoundrel, right? The roommate said awkwardly, well, not exactly. I said, it's fine. Then I said bluntly, I don't think it's a big deal. I only figured this out in the past few days. All along, men have been disciplined into becoming too cowardly. In literature, in movies and TV shows, it's always the same scenes, women as the victims, men as the abusers. It's as if being male is an original sin. Men are taught that they must yield to women, protect women, and even when a woman makes mistakes, people will still first persuade the men to be magnanimous, simply because you're a man. Even in family relationships, many people claim with certainty that since women are physically weaker, when a woman hits a man it doesn't count as domestic violence. That's why those images of wife-fearing men, henpecked husbands, and men treated like slaves to their wives have become popularized. Men's suffering has even been turned into entertainment. It's as if only by putting their wives on a pedestal can men gain women's approval. As if that's the only way to redeem themselves from the so-called original sin of being male. And yet, when a man finally makes the most rightful counterattack, people immediately say, you're being petty. Not a real man, but when you're harmed, you're supposed to fight back tooth for tooth. We should never let gender decide whether we retaliate or not. Chapter 14. In the past, I didn't understand, I only knew how to isolate myself. It wasn't that I didn't want to love, but that I was running away. What Willow said was right, because I feared the pain I might face. I didn't even dare to touch the beauty of love. When I found out Willow cheated, I once regretted ever liking her. I wondered, was I wrong? Should I never have let anyone into my heart? But in these past days, with every slap I dealt as the most direct form of release, I suddenly realized something. It shouldn't be this way. A coward gets hurt even by soft cotton, too afraid even of happiness. Life only happens once. We should face everything life gives us. When we're happy, laugh. When we're sad, cry. When we want to love, go love. And if we're hurt, it's fine. Let go of what needs to be let go. Hit back when it's time to hit back. Only then can we live freely, without regrets. Only then can we always stay passionate. Always look forward to the next gift fate has to offer. Chapter 15. The days that followed were actually quite pleasant. Whenever Makoto couldn't hold back his temper and tried to provoke me, I'd take it out on Willow with a good beating. Eventually, it got to the point where whenever I so much as lifted my hand, both Willow and Makoto would instinctively shrink their necks and look at me with fear in their eyes. That was how it should be. In front of me, they had no right to look smug and happy. It was an eyesore. A cheating woman and her lover should live with their heads down, tails tucked. I was satisfied with that, but Makoto still hadn't fully learned his lesson. After Willow found out she was pregnant, he couldn't resist sending me the test results, gloating as he said, 6 years of marriage and Willow never got pregnant with you. Serves you right for being cheated on. Turns out it had to be me. I stared at Willow's belly with amusement. I almost laughed myself to death. Wasn't this basically telling me, clear as day, that Willow's stomach couldn't wait any longer? Makoto soon regretted his provocation bitterly, because on the day we were supposed to get the divorce certificate, I didn't show up. Willow blew up my phone with angry calls, demanding answers, but I was on a beach vacation, filming videos for my fans. She snapped, "George, how could you go back on your word?" I lounged lazily under the sun and replied, I was so pissed off that I had no energy to divorce. I had to take a vacation first. You'll have to get a new number at the registry. My live stream chat was going wild. Bullet comments filled the screen. George has mastered marriage law. Haha. Reverse play. As long as I don't rush, the one who panics is the other side. Let's see if they can keep being arrogant now. After rescheduling, before the new date arrived, Willow first received a court summons. My lawyer had drafted a new agreement demanding that Willow leave the marriage with nothing. Makoto refused. Since he had been counting on Willow getting at least part of my assets, he made her delay for another month, but Willow saw her belly growing day by day. She still wanted to wear a wedding dress beautifully, so she signed the agreement behind Makoto's back in order to marry sooner. That way, I successfully kept all the marital property. She told Makoto, "Makoto, you make millions a year. You'll earn it back sooner or later. Why keep fixating on his money? Besides, if we don't hold the wedding soon, I won't even be able to fit into the dress with this waist of mine." Makoto fainted on the spot from anger. The previous viral videos had already boosted my popularity a lot. On top of that, I had been live streaming the whole divorce process and gained hundreds of thousands of followers. Looking at it all, I realized, this one divorce had almost made me rich. Chapter 16. On the day we went to get the divorce certificate, Willow and Makoto held their breath the whole time, not daring to make a sound. Only when the documents were finally in their hands did they exhale in relief. This time, I kept my word, because the trap I had laid for them was about to explode. If we didn't finalize things, I was afraid they might go back on it. Although my violent divorce saga had been trending online, their personal information had always been suppressed from public release. I never interfered, but now, it was time. The day after the divorce certificate was issued, just as Willow and Makoto finished choosing their wedding invitation design, their identities leaked all over the internet. The well-known foreign company where they both worked reacted quickly, issuing a stern statement that very day. The core message was just one sentence. Mr. Makoto and Ms. Willow have seriously violated our company's core values and employee code of conduct. Effective immediately, their employment contracts are terminated. Makoto's $1 million salary, gone. He tried to copy me by starting an online account. In a panic, he showed off his love with Willow, flaunted wealth, displayed her pregnant belly, but the platform permanently banned them for promoting improper values. Meanwhile, my lawyer sent me an update. Ms. Willow now faces a huge penalty for breaching her contract after being fired, on top of her past overspending. And with marital property already divided, her debt is estimated at nearly $1 million. I glanced at the phone notification, took a sip of coffee. Soft white sand under my feet, endless blue sea before my eyes. I typed one word in reply, good. In my live stream, Fans spread the news with glee, celebrating. Congratulations, George, finally free from misery. Those scumbags are finished, one jobless, one in debt, perfect match. This ending is so satisfying. I ate 3 bowls of rice. I looked out at the boundless horizon, sea breeze lifting my hair, smiling light and carefree. My emotional isolation seemed to have healed itself, so naturally.